Hello everyone, my name is Case Roach, and today I'll be presenting the results from my Organizational Culture Assessment Inventory, or OCAI. This tool helps organizations understand their underlying cultural dynamics using the Competing Values Framework. Today, I'll walk through my current and preferred organizational culture types, analyze what these findings mean, and offer recommendations that narrow the gap between where my organization is and where I want it to be. Throughout this presentation, I'll reflect on what these cultural traits mean to me personally and how they align with key principles that we've studied in this class. On this slide, you can see the summary of my OCAI results. The assessment breaks organizational culture into 4 different types: collaborate, create, compete, and control. It also shows both my current perception and my preferred culture. Currently, collaborate is the strongest culture type at 35.83. This indicates a strong emphasis of teamwork, trust, and shared values. Next is compete at 29.17. This suggests a significant focus on achievement, results, and external goals. Control follows at 25.0. This shows there's a fair amount of emphasis on structure, consistency, and formal processes. And finally, create is the lowest at 10.0, showing innovation and risk-taking are not as dominant in the current environment. In my preferred culture, we see a slight shift. Collaborate remains high at 32.5, showing I still value connection and cohesion. Create rises to 16.67, indicating a stronger desire for innovation and creativity. Compete drops to 23.3. This shows less emphasis on competition and performance metrics. Control increases slightly to 27.5. This shows a growing performance for structure and stability. All of these shifts suggest that while I value collaboration and results, I would like to see a more innovative culture supported by clear processes and systems. This blend reflects a desire for both flexibility and accountability with a strong team-centered environment. Here you can see my results plotted on the Competing Values Framework grid. The framework divides the organization culture into 4 types, like we discussed before: collaborate, create, compete, and control. My current culture profile shows a strong lead toward collaborate and compete values. The preferred profile, however, reflects a subtle shift. Collaborate remains dominant, like we discussed before, but there's a notable increase in create and control values. This framework has been useful in illustrating the tensions that often exist in organizations. For example, a high collaborate culture can sometimes resist change, while a strong create culture can bring risk and instability if not properly managed. Understanding these dynamics is crucial for leadership planning and cultural transformation. As we've already seen, the predominant culture in my current result is the collaborative culture. This is centered on mentorship, teamwork, loyalty, and tradition. Leaders in this environment are seen as facilitators and team builders. There's a strong sense of shared values and goals. It's no surprise to me that this culture stands out. I tend to thrive in environments where relationships matter, where feedback is open, and where people feel a sense of belonging. From a performance perspective, the collaborative culture excels at internal cohesion and morale. However, it may sometimes lag in competitive edge or innovation, if not balanced with all 3 other culture types. This is something I've experienced firsthand in group settings where the focus sometimes prevented us from addressing underperformance. When comparing the current and preferred culture scores, there's a clear message. While the collaborative spirit is strong and should remain central, there is a need for more innovation and structure. This comes through the increased preference for create and control cultures. The increase in create indicates a desire to take more risks, experiment new ideas, and be more responsive to change. This culture type often drives growth through entrepreneurial thinking and adaptability. For me personally, this reflects a growing desire to be a part of a forward-thinking team. that also embraces new technologies and creative solutions. The increased control value is equally interesting. It suggests a greater need for clear systems, consistency, and accountability. Logically, this might look like more formal policies, defined roles, or performance monitoring. This all could be a reaction to disorganization or a lack of clarity in the culture environment. The decreased emphasis on compete may reflect a desire to shift away from a high pressure, results only culture. This doesn't just mean eliminating goals or performance, but rather integrating them into a more supportive and balanced environment. In order to move the culture closer to the desired state, there are several strategic steps that can be taken. First, to foster innovation, leadership could create a culture of safety where people feel comfortable sharing untested ideas. This could include brainstorming sessions or just rotational leadership opportunities that give people a chance to explore beyond their normal roles. Organizations could also invest in learning and development programs focused on problem solving. Secondly, clarifying processes is essential to satisfy the increased desire for control. This might involve standardizing certain workflows, using project management, or clearly documenting responsibilities. Structure doesn't have to be rigid. It can be the scaffolding that supports growth and clarity. Thirdly, to balance performance with support, organizations can adopt a coaching module where feedback is frequent, constructive, and development focused. Recognition programs and transparent goal setting also help reinforce a strong performance culture without losing the human centered values of the collaborate quadrant. All these strategies, grounded in the competing values framework, can bring harmony between what is currently working and what needs to evolve. In conclusion, my results show that while I deeply value collaboration, there is also a growing appetite for innovation. This shift isn't dramatic, but it is meaningful. It reflects a desire for a more dynamic and structured environment. By fostering creativity, strengthening structure, and maintaining a people first approach, I believe we can narrow the cultural gap and create an environment where everyone can thrive. These, these reflections have helped me better understand the type of organization I want to be a part of, and more importantly, how I can contribute to building it. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Reference list.